When I started playing first, pianos were very scarce in the little country halls. Uh, One of the reasons was that the hall was that small that to get a piano in it would take up a certain amount of room, whereas a man accordion sitting in the corner didn't take up so much room. And to get a piano there would have to be hired from the local music shop, would have to be transported out there. They'd have to find somebody to play it, and then have to be returned. Well, where the accordion played for a dance, to get in would be ninepence. If a piano was available and played, the price went up to a shilling. Perhaps 1 and 6, it all depended where it was and how the crowd was. Muckleford, they were just straight out accordion. Friarstown had a piano that was there. I suppose that piano has been there to my knowledge for 50 years, the same piano. And Joyce Creek had one, that hall is closed and gone now. The two Ravenswood schools, they had just the accordion, no room for a piano there. Buttery's Barn out here at Muckleford. That was run originally to get funds to buy the kilts and pipes for the Castlemaine Highland Pipe Band. I think it was about the 1950s. Might have been before that, but I'd say somewhere about the 1950s that they started to run those dances. I went out there and played quite a lot out there. A chap called Des Skinner and myself, he played acoustic steel guitar. There was no amplifiers out there then. And if they wanted a piano, well, the piano had to be hired from me and carted out to Muckleford, 3 miles or so, and then brought back again. They had to get a pianist to play it. They had to pay the pianist, so the price on the door went up. But in Ottery's Barn, it was a peculiar place to play in. In the middle of the shearing shed was the big wool press, and that was a fixture that was fastened. And when the dance was on, the circular dance, the waltz or the barn dance or the letter waltz, everybody danced in a circle. And they danced around in the big circle outside of the wool press. It was a little bit of a difference when a set was put on, the Alberts or the first set or something like that. The sets had to be arranged so that they could be clear of, when they were swinging partners, and that they'd be clear of this wool press in the middle of the hall. Well, that dance went on for quite a few years until they got the funds to fit out the pipe band. But they were very successful crowd of dancers. The Scout Hall, local Scout Hall here, the old original Scout Hall, that's down near the railway station. That was put there for the Scout troop, and I think to put it there was £450. And the Scoutmaster came to me, and old Bill McGlashan, and a chap called Len Cowling. He was an acoustic guitarist, and would we play down there till they got funds to pay pay the debt on the hall. Well, I suppose the dance went on there for a number of years, 5 or 6 years perhaps, and it was one of the most popular dances in Castlemaine for public hall. And Saturday night, and it was nothing to see a 14-pound door at a shilling a head to get in there, and there'd be the 2 accordions and the 1 guitar, but we had to take it in turns. Old McGlashan's accordion was a different key to mine, so he'd have to play on his own. So he'd play one dance with Len Cowling on the guitar, and I'd play the next dance. And that dance went on, should I say, until the debt was paid. Well, after that, the dancers sort of more or less followed up. And the hall, although still there, is now the Salvation Army. They're all in Castlemaine. But
when they opened that hall, wasn't it the place where they had the
They had the governor and all it up there. They've got pictures down there. Well, the scouts have got pictures of the governor arriving by special train to open the hall. Yeah, there are pictures of it.
That wasn't the one where when they opened the hall they didn't get you to play, or?
No, well that's the one where perhaps I might have been wrong in doing it, but they paid the debt off, and then they decided to run a big ball in the local town hall, and 5 shillings to go in. So I know Cowling and McGlashan and myself, we were thinking, oh, well, they're going to play for something big tonight. It's going to be a ball. Then the next thing we hear in the grapevine that one of the big orchestras in the town is engaged to play for this ball. So, all right, I had a talk with the other two, with my mates, and we decided we'd go to the ball. It was a success. And they paid out, I think it was £50 for music for this top-grade orchestra to play for the dance. But when the next monthly dance was due at the hall, the scoutmaster at the time, he came up to me and he said, you'll be ready for the next dance at the down at the hall Saturday week. I forget the date, but he mentioned the date. I said, I know. I said, I'll be going. And he looked at me real funny. And, why, what's wrong? Well, I said, look, I said, we played down there. I said, for nothing. I said, for years. But I said, as soon as you get a big job that there's a few bob in it for somebody, we never got paid. Our money, there was no charge for our music. So I said, as soon as you get a big job where you can pay somebody, I said, you pay another orchestra to play for the ball. Now, I said, you get them to play for the dance. Well, that upset things a little bit. I'm going to say that possibly I did the wrong thing. In hindsight, I might have done the wrong thing. I don't know. But anyway, right, they did try a pianist or two after. They got a piano in there and tried it. And the dancers were a fault. It didn't do any good. Well, then the same chap, he came to me then. He said, look, he said, we've got to put a fireplace in that hall down there, and it's going to cost us £5 to get the fireplace built in the chimney. Going to be a lot of voluntary labour in that, but we want £5. Will you come? I said, no. I said, you go and get the other orchestra. I said, to play them. I never played there anymore.
You look pretty pretty, I think. Hang on.
Walk out the front door, light up a cigarette, open a bottle of beer or something, and we'd play for 5 minutes or so, and nobody would get up and dance. There'd be no sign of any dancing part, and we'd put our instruments down, had enough of it, and just we'd put them down, 2 or 3 couples to get up, and we'd be expected to play on. But the good MC would stand in the middle of the floor, and he would, come on, so many more couples, come on, get up and make it a night or something like that. No matter what the music was like, a good MC wouldn't leave the floor until he was satisfied that he got all he could get on the floor. And only then would he leave. But Gordon Ryland, one of the best MCs around here, he would stand in the middle of the floor and he would beg, borrow or steal, if you like, to get people to get up and get on the floor and to dance. And he wouldn't think of leaving the floor until that was done.
How else do you reckon the dances have changed since the older days?
Oh, the dances in the steps, they've changed quite a lot. Like I'll take for a start the barn dance was done a different style. The Valletta waltz was done a different style. The sets were mainly the same. The program was altered. The first dance usually was a circular waltz. Started with a circular waltz and finished with a circular waltz. And then there were several dances around the district where the sets, the quadrilles, every third or fourth dance would be a set dance. And the first set dance that was put on for the night was usually the first set. And that, as his name implies, It's the first set. It's the first set done for the night. If the Royal Irish is exactly the same movements in the set, but it's played to Irish jigs, 6/8 time. But it's to save it from being called the first set in case it's put on again, they call it the Royal Irish and change the tempo of the music. But the first set should be, by rights, the first set that's put on. Well, then they'll have 2 or 3 other dances, then possibly the Alberts, and then 2 or 3 more dances, and then perhaps the Waltz-Stillions, the Lancers, the Caledonians. There was a chap out here at Euston, Eddie Skinner. He called 6 or 8 sets without any notes or anything like that at all. Gordon Ryland would go through half a dozen. He wouldn't have any notes or anything like that. He could call them. That's where the dance, in a way, the quadrilles, the only quadrilles that I know of now being done, are the Alberts and occasionally the Waltz-Cotillions. But the first set, the Lancers and all them, unless you get to where Peter Ellis is, the Emu Creek, they'll put on perhaps the Royal Irish or the Lancers or something like that. The other dancers around, no. One set, lucky to get 2.
What other changes do you reckon have happened? Like, what about noise level, or I mean, the PA gear now make quite a difference.
Well, the noise level, I've played in the Castlemaine Town Hall solo with Old Time, and the old Mezon accordion would fill the town hall with music. There was no stamping of feet or anything like that. Everything was danced very sedately, very quietly. And yet I've been in halls where they've had a bit of bush dancing that going on, and you didn't know whether he was playing or not. To go back to some of the rules they had, there were several halls around the district. There was, they were looked at. Muttleford was one. The Folder Watson Hall here in Castlemaine was another one. There were several others. Anyway, to forget them, but there were several of them where the gents would line up the hall with their boots on, but as soon as they stepped inside the little porch, their boots were taken off and dancing pumps were put on. And there was different old hall keepers that if you walked in the front door and wanted to go down the opposite end of the hall and you walked down the middle of the floor, the hall keeper would stand up to you. Look, if you want to go down the other end, you walk around the edge of the hall. The middle of the floor is for dancing and not for walking on. And that was pretty strict in some places. And because the old hall keeper, he'd put in hours and hours the day before the dance, dragging around a box with some bricks in it and some grease or some floor fast stuff underneath. I've even seen him put a couple of pack of the Wheaties on the floor and drag that around. And that's livened the floor up. Brassic acid was another thing. And all right, well, the hall keeper didn't want his floor used any more than dancing. And he would chip anybody that walked near. And another thing that disappeared, and I haven't seen it done for years, there was a chap here, Charlie Pitt, and he had a learner's class. And on a Monday night, he'd call out the dance. Gentlemen select their partners for the circular waltz, the first dance. And the old chap on the piano would play a march, and everybody would march around in a circle, anti-clockwise fashion, march around in couples. And when everybody was on the floor, he'd give the signal then for the musician to start, and the music would start, and the circular waltz would go on. And if a couple got up after the dance had started and joined into the circle, Charlie would go across and give him a tap, give the gent a tap on the shoulder. Now, you didn't get up in the promenade. you go and sit down now. Well, I've seen Gordon Ryland do that several times. He didn't do it regularly, but I've seen him do it. He'd call out promenade for a barn dance. They'd all get up and somebody break in the circle. And Gordon, he would go, of course, and just give them a chap. You know, you didn't get up when the dance started. You sit down now. And if there's any argument at all, Gordon and Charlie Pitt and those old MCs, they had 4 or 5 6-foot men standing behind them ready to deal with any situation at all. But that's disappeared. Promenade in couples before the dance started. That meant that everybody started together. That was one of the beauties of it. When you started to play a dance, now, these days, the MC announces the dance. Perhaps a dozen couples will get up on the floor. You play an introduction and they'll start off. But then by degrees, others will get up and get in, and they've got to look at what other dancers are doing, what movements they're doing in the dance to get in with it. But the old style was everybody started off together in the big circle, and that's disappeared.
You said about the people keeping order. How many fights do you reckon you see there at a dance?
Fights?
Yeah.
Well, I've seen quite a few. There was the Endite, rightly or wrongly, had a name for being a wild ball, but it was always a well-run ball, and any trouble started out there, and quite often there was dealt with early. Friarstown, I saw 2 there. Matter of fact, our drummer that we had was at the time, he dropped one bloke in the hall, and they had to carry him outside. Started over a private argument, but I suppose altogether I wouldn't, for all me 60-odd years at it, I wouldn't have seen any more than half a dozen. I remember the Scoudor one night, there was a chap there. He was a bit of a hard doer. Anyway, he carried on. He was under the influence, and he carried on a bit. And I got a suspicion that the police must have been rung for. Anyway, a policeman arrived and arrested him. And the policeman carted him off, and then he got about 100 yards, and he king hit the policeman. And the policeman went back, got a bit of assistance, and took 2 or 3 of them to get him away to the lockup, sort of thing. That was the only one that ever I saw at the Scoudor, but that didn't happen inside. That was out on the street, out on the road. But and I did have a bit of a history, but I did see 1 or 2 nights out there where there was a bit of ill feeling that went on between families, and right, it went on between our groups or something like that, and you can't say it was the liquor that brought it. They used to bring their own home brew. They were used to it, and they didn't overindulge, but there was the odd 1 or 2 that would kick up a row. But there was one man out there, in particular, a big 6-foot-odd fella, 14 or 15 stone, a big man. And if any anything started in the hall, in fact, one night Dave Barker and I were playing for dance, and he was standing behind us, and this blue started in the hall, and he just jumped over the top of Dave and me and down in the hall, and he grabbed the fella with a scruff of the neck, 1 in each hand, out to the front door and down the front steps, outside, quick smart. And most of those that I know, when they were pitched out of the hall, their money was thrown after them, and they were warned, cool off and you can come back. If you don't cool off, don't come back. But a lot of them, their money was thrown after, but there wouldn't be a great number that I saw as far as fights goes.
You like to play couple, would you?
Yeah. I'll try this one. I might have to go back over it again. It's Invercargill.
What was in there, Harry?
Invercargill was the first. Colonel Bogey was the next, and the last one I don't know.
What about just finishing off with your band acts?
Give us 5 minutes. You'd know them.
What were the dances you did the Wild Colonial Boy and those two?
Was. Um, yeah, that was a waltz.
And did you play Waltzing Matilda in a section?
Yeah. You had those before. They'd be for a set or a barn dance. Give us 5 minutes and I'll play a novelty final waltz. You picked them?
Picked a couple of them. Home Sweet Home.
Yeah. Now is the hour of the first one.
Yeah.
Get home, sweet home. You get the last one? The last two? Yep, that's the...
I haven't heard of my birthday party.
Where did that idea come from?
Well, this old George Barlow, the old pianist, at the learners' class on Monday night, you'd be dancing the final waltz. And after a while, I suddenly woke up. He's playing God Save the King. It was the king in those days. He's playing God Save the King. All right. If he can do it, I can do it. So the next dance we went to, tried it in Welsh time, a bit of a stammer and stutter, but got through it. And then just lately, since they brought in Advance Australia Fair, I reckon I can do the same thing too. So we had a Jandite one night. One might have been the first or second night we was there. And I played the final waltz, played those two for a start. And when I got into God Save the Queen, Murray's out. And the fiddle bloke looking Jack Egney-nosed, he's with me, he's right. But the chap on the sax and the violin, he can't make anything out. And the other two blokes on the steel guitar and the banjo, they're lost. And they're getting the Advanced Australia Fair, they still not a wake up to it sort of thing. And when we finished, Murray said, "Hey, don't we play God Save the Queen?" I said, "Look, Murray," I said, "we've already played it." I said, "And they danced to it." And that came about. It played in Welsh time.